The Kim dynasty has ruled North Korea since the country's creation, and the railway has become one of its inseparable attributes. The tradition of traveling by train was started by Kim Il-sung, the founder of the state and grandfather of the current leader. He was the first to choose the rails instead of the skies, and he chose them not by accident. The train offered something the airplane could not provide: absolute control over the surroundings, the ability to bring an extensive entourage, and airtight isolation from the outside world. The green locomotive with a yellow line running through the middle of its body gradually became a symbol of the dynasty, as recognizable as the leader's portraits hanging in every apartment. Kim Il-sung traveled on that train to Vietnam and to the countries of Eastern Europe. In 1984, he even visited Poland, crossing thousands of kilometers of track. His son Kim Jong-il took over the tradition and turned it into an obsession. He was panically afraid of airplanes, which was not at all uncommon among leaders of the socialist bloc. Among the dictators of that era, there were stories about the plane crash that killed Lin Biao, Mao Zedong's designated successor. For people living in permanent fear of assassination, flying was simply too great a risk. Kim Jong-il carried that fear with him throughout his life, and literally took it to the grave. According to the official state media, it was during a train journey in December 2011 that he suffered a fatal heart attack. The son, Kim Jong-un, who took power after his father, does not seem to have inherited the same fear of flying. During his travels, he sometimes used a jet, a Soviet Il-62 belonging to the state airline Air Koryo. He reached Singapore for his first meeting with Donald Trump in 2018 by airplane. However, whenever the political situation became important, whenever the distance was great, and the symbolism of the journey mattered more than time, Kim reached for the train. As if a steel train on the rails spoke louder than any airplane. As if the very freedom to move at railway rollerblade speed across half a continent told the world, I am safe enough, confident enough, to spend 2 days on it. The train itself, or rather the entire fleet, is a separate world. According to reports, Pyongyang has several special train sets, and one of them is reserved for the leader himself. It consists of 21 cars, though other sources say there are as many as 90 cars in the entire fleet available to the dynasty. All are kept in the characteristic dark green color with a yellow stripe, have tinted windows, and are bulletproof. At least 2 cars are equipped with full-size armor capable of withstanding fire from assault weapons. The total weight of the set is so great that even on Chinese, more modern tracks the train cannot go faster than 80 kilometers per hour, and on North Korean tracks, only 45. The interior of this palace on wheels is just as absurd in the context of the country's situation as everything else in North Korea. Konstantin Pulikovsky, the Russian military official who accompanied Kim Jong-il during his trip to Russia in 2001, later described his experiences in a book. He spoke of the possibility of ordering dishes from Russian, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and French cuisine. Live lobsters were delivered to the railway stations along the route, and there were also crates of wines from Bordeaux and Burgundy. According to the account, Putin's private train simply could not compare with that level of comfort. Wooden floors polished to a shine, richly decorated white doors, leather armchairs, tables with mahogany tops. These are the details that broke through the iron curtain of silence surrounding the train. The cars contain conference rooms, bedrooms, a dining room, and quarters for the staff. One car is reserved exclusively for transporting cars, specifically for an armored Mercedes-Maybach S600 Pullman Guard, which Kim uses after arriving at his destination. The value of this vehicle is estimated at nearly $2 million. The train also includes its own satellite station, enabling real-time communication with Pyongyang, flat screens for strategic briefings, and, according to informed accounts, the leader's personal orchestra, which played for him during meals. If one is to believe more salacious tabloid reports and defectors' testimonies, among the train staff there are also women serving as entertainment companions for the leader and his generals. The train officially bears the name Taeyang-ho, which in Korean means sun. This is a reference to the symbolism of Kim Il-sung, who during his life was surrounded by a cult of divinity and compared precisely to the sun. The fact that Kim Jong-un gives his train his grandfather's name speaks for itself. Every element of the image serves dynastic continuity, and even a means of transport, becomes a tool of propaganda. The train's security is surrounded by procedures that border on paranoia, though in light of this regime's history, that paranoia is entirely justified. Whenever the train approaches a station, the power is cut on the adjacent tracks. No other train may be nearby. All railway traffic in the country stops. The other trains must wait on sidings. In front of the locomotive runs a scout train with agents checking the tracks, bridges, and level crossings. Behind it comes a third unit carrying the protection detail and medical staff. In this way, the ruler always travels in a convoy made up of 3 trains, and even this configuration was tightened after 2004. In April 2004, a massive explosion occurred at Ryongchon railway station near the border with China. 2 freight trains collided, causing a detonation that turned the entire area into ruins. Nearly 160 people were killed and 1,600 were injured. The explosion itself might not have been so significant for the history of Kim's trains if not for one detail. 9 hours earlier, Kim Jong-il's train had passed through the same station, returning from an unannounced visit to China. The official version spoke of an accidental malfunction and the contact of chemical fertilizers with the electrical installation. The unofficial version about assassination attempts and deliberate destruction. The former railway minister, who had overseen the network since 1998, disappeared from the official media in 2008. According to reports from Seoul, he was quietly executed. Since then, the protective measures around the leader's train have become even more stringent. The entire railway infrastructure in North Korea is in a sense subordinated to this one goal, ensuring the leader's safe and uninterrupted travel. Across the country, there is a network of 19 special stations reserved exclusively for the Kim dynasty's trains. These are facilities inaccessible to ordinary citizens, equipped with separate platforms, restrooms, and logistical support areas. When the leader's train sets out on an inspection tour of the country, all scheduled traffic is halted for the duration of the passage. For millions of Koreans traveling by train to work, to market, or to the hospital, this means hours of waiting on a siding, with no explanation, no timetable, and no possibility of complaint. It is worth noting here that the state of North Korea's ordinary railway network is miserable. The total length of the lines exceeds 5,300 kilometers, and almost all routes are single-track, which forces frequent stops at passing loops. About 80 lines were electrified, which paradoxically became the reason for their decline, because frequent power outages paralyze transport. A journey from Pyongyang to distant Rajin can take as long as several days. Against this backdrop, the leader's train, with its own satellite station, Bordeaux wine, and bulletproof walls, is like a vehicle from another dimension. Every foreign trip by Kim Jong-un's train becomes an event watched by the entire world. In March 2018, the dark green train rolled into Beijing's main station. It was Kim's first foreign trip since taking power in 2011. The Chinese authorities ensured absolute discretion, yet surveillance cameras and reporters managed to capture the locomotive's characteristic color. In February 2019, the train set out on its longest journey, from Pyongyang through all of China to Hanoi in Vietnam, where Kim was to meet Donald Trump at the second summit. The total distance was more than 4,500 kilometers. The journey took 60 hours. The world tracked the train's route on maps in almost real time, while Kim himself sat behind thick curtains and revealed no details about the purpose of the visit. Upon reaching the Chinese-Vietnamese border in Dong Dang, Kim transferred to a limousine because Vietnam's rail infrastructure was not equipped to handle such a heavy train set under the required security mode. 12 bodyguards initially ran alongside the accelerating vehicle and then jumped into accompanying jeeps while still running. A scene that cameras sent around the world. The Hanoi summit ended without an agreement. Kim returned by train, this time watched by the media a little less enthusiastically. A month after Hanoi, in May 2019, the train took him to Vladivostok for a meeting with Putin, and that was his last foreign trip before the long isolation caused by the pandemic. Over the following years, satellites tracking North Korea repeatedly detected the train in various locations, trying to read the leader's movements from that. In 2020, when Kim disappeared from the media for several weeks and speculation arose about his health or even his death, the appearance of the train at a station in seaside Wonsan became one of the first clues suggesting that the dictator was probably alive and vacationing in one of his residences. Wonsan, a city on the Sea of Japan, is connected to the rest of the country by a private railway line reserved exclusively for the Kim dynasty and the highest party officials. The location also has symbolic meaning. It was there in 1945 that Kim Il-sung landed with Soviet troops to liberate the country from Japanese domination. In September 2023, the train departed again, this time for Vladivostok, for a meeting with Putin in the context of the still ongoing war in Ukraine. The world knew what the talks were about: North Korean supplies of ammunition and artillery shells for the Russian army. Kim came, talked, and returned. The train, as always, said nothing. And in September 2025, the train rolled into Beijing again, this time for a grand military parade marking the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War in the Pacific. At Kim's side were Putin and China's President Xi Jinping, three allies on the platform, and behind the scenes, the green and yellow train sitting on a sidetrack, waiting to return. Kim Il-sung's and Kim Jong-il's cars no longer run on the rails. They stand displayed in the Kumsusan Palace in Pyongyang, the mausoleum where the bodies of both leaders lie in glass sarcophagi. The cars are part of the cult, part of eternal memory. One day, perhaps Kim Jong-un's train will also stand in a similar place. If this video hooked you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out the next video.